Welcome back to another episode of Hot Takes, the motorcycle show for busy people who love motorcycles. And today we're going to give you updates to the rider market. We're going to talk about why Pramac switched from Ducati to Yamaha and what that means for riders, the championship, and everybody in MotoGP, and also us as fans. And number three, we're going to explain what is up with tire pressures and why did Mark just get a 16-second penalty? All coming right at you. First, updates to the rider market. Silly season is in full swing, and we got some new riders who got seats for the next year, and that's exciting news. So Marco Bezzecchi signed with Aprilia. Not a huge surprise. We have an Italian in an Italian brand. He's happy. They're happy. Marco Bezzecchi is a very talented rider. As we saw last year, him taking wins, taking podiums. This year, he has been out of form. He did not have a good weekend at Assen, even though in the past he's done well here. I'm not sure what happened to him, but we're hoping that he comes back and does better in the future. He's ended up on the ground a lot lately, which is not good. In the comments last time when I talked about Vinales, there was a lot of people saying, oh, Vinales is just butthurt because they chose Martin and Martin's better than him. That story, while it's going around in the comment section, I don't really buy it. So I was listening to Crash Motorcycle podcast, and in an interview they talked about how they believe that money is a factor. So we all know that Aprilia has a tight budget compared to the other manufacturers. It's likely that to land Martin, they had to pay him quite a lot of money because Martin, he's leading the championship. He's worth a lot of money. Maybe they ran out of budget. The speculation, okay, but maybe they ran out of budget and they had to cut Vinales' pay for next year in order to afford Martin. And to me, that makes a lot more sense. The idea that, oh, he's butthurt is not really, doesn't work for me. And the reason is because Aprilia has really been patient with him. Vinales is a notoriously inconsistent rider. He might be at the top of the timesheets. He might be just kicking it out of the water, amazing, or he might be nowhere. That is him. That's how he rides. That's an issue with him. I believe that it makes a lot more sense that he left over money than he left because he's upset with Aprilia. Because I believe that they've shown commitment to him and they've been very patient with him. Joan Mir re-signed with Honda, and that's a big surprise because he's been saying that he's very unhappy at Honda. The riders who go to Honda end up in a worse place. He doesn't have good offers like he did before when he rode for Suzuki. So despite all this bad mouthing, they signed him again. So why would he want to stay with Honda? Money, right? They're known for paying really well. Honda has a lot of money and they want to get back to the top. He didn't stay for results because he ends up on the ground every race. Honestly, he probably didn't have a lot of good offers besides Honda. Why would Honda want to keep him despite him bad-mouthing them in the press? That's a good question. However, I believe that they don't have a lot of better options because it's gotten around. Everybody realizes that once you get on the Honda, your career goes down. It just is not an upward trajectory. And so I think it's hard for them to get riders right now. Their bike is worse than it was last year. The riders say that it's moved backwards. The strong points it had before are negated. It's worse in its strong points, and it didn't gain in anywhere. So we're hoping for development from them in the future because I'd like to see them competing near the front very soon, but we'll see how that goes. The news is reporting that Alex Rins is very close to a deal for renewing with Yamaha, and that's not a surprise because he's rode fairly well for them this year. He's had a decent year. It's his first year. Takes a little while to learn a new bike, but the bike does suit his style. He came from Honda, and the Honda is not a corner speed bike. It's not an anything bike right now, but it used to be a stop, turn, pick the bike up, fire it out kind of bike. Alex Rins is very smooth. He's very good on the edge of the tire. He rode well with the Suzuki, which is a corner speed bike. So with the Yamaha being more of a corner speed bike, I expect him to grow into that. And he's a very talented rider. He's got a lot of podiums, a lot of wins, and we're hoping for good things from Yamaha. So talking about Yamaha, they landed Pramac, and obviously they've been wanting 2 more bikes on the grid. They want to go back to having 4 bikes. They want to compete at the front, and they're willing to pay for it, as we saw with Quartararo, where they're paying him like $12 million a year to sign with them. Now, the problem is teams don't necessarily want to pick up the Yamaha. So why would Pramac want to get the Yamaha? And this is very difficult to understand because of the fact that right now they have the best bike on the grid. So they have a really sweet deal with Ducati. As reported on the Crash podcast and Paddock Pass podcast, it seems like they get these bikes basically for free, where the other companies, Gresini and VR46, are paying quite a bit of money for these bikes. They're buying these bikes, leasing them from Ducati. Pramac has this sweet deal where they're sponsored, and they've worked closely with Ducati for a long time, from when things were very difficult and they were not finishing at the front. Martin this weekend, got second, right behind Bagnaia, and consistently he's in the front, right? He's leading the championship. So why would you want to go from a bike that leads the championship, that's the best bike on the grid, that's the current GP24 bike, and then downgrade to Quartararo was the first Yamaha rider in 12th position. So going from the top to behind 10th place, hard to understand, okay? So I would say, number one, money. In an interview with TNT Sports, Paolo Capinati, the Pramac boss, he said, the thinking behind it is that, honestly, we are happy to join the project, meaning the Yamaha project. It could be seen as crazy to jump from the winning bike of the world champion to go to Yamaha. Exactly what I just said. But they have a strong project. We believe that together we can bring back Yamaha where they should stay. They are investing a lot of money. They are a fantastic company. So that indicates they're investing a lot of money. That indicates they're investing a lot of money in Pramac. So however they're contributing to Pramac, it has to be monetary, more than what Ducati is willing to do. They believe in the project of the young riders, which seems Ducati does not anymore. Okay, so this is a hint that the switch from Martin to Marquez in Ducati was another major factor. And this is something that's being reported in different outlets as well, because we believe that Pramac their place has been nurturing younger riders and bringing riders up. So they offer a good bike, a good package to talent like Martin. And Martin was their guy for a long time. And the idea is it's a feeder into the factory team. And Ducati is not willing to honor that agreement, essentially a track for bringing riders up. They're going out of this track and they're choosing Mark because he has a lot of championships and he can bring a lot of fans, right? So Pramac seems unhappy with this change in the way that things are being done, and that seems like it's also a factor. So what does this mean for the rider market? Well, Morbidelli has really something to think about now, because he just came from the Yamaha. He did not do well on the Yamaha. Would he want to stay with Pramac when they go back to Yamaha? It seems unlikely. So we'll see what he's offered. I'm sure he's out there, got the feelers out, trying to get a better bike, maybe stay on a Ducati. What does this mean for Ducati? Well, the situation is that another team will probably get these factory bikes that were going to Pramac, and the likely one is VR46. I mean, we're talking about Valentino Rossi here. He has connections, especially in Italy. And so he would be at the top of the list for getting this sweet deal that Pramac was getting. So this may end up being really cool for MotoGP, because a lot of people would like to see the VR46 bikes farther in the front, because there's a lot of Rossi fans. So this could work out great for everybody. We'll see what happens in the future. Some people might be surprised to find that Mark finished the Assen race in 4th, and he dropped down to 10th after a 16-second penalty. And this seems harsh. What happened? Where did it come from? Well, I'm going to explain to you tire pressures. For the last couple of years, they've been focusing on tire pressures. Why? Well, the thing is that the lower the tire pressure that you run, the more grip that you have. The tire tends to flatten out a little bit and you get a little bit more grip to a point, obviously. Well, what you're playing with is safety. So as you flatten the tire out and the tire is flexing more, you're putting more heat into the carcass, and you can overheat the tire to the point of having it disintegrate. And this becomes a safety issue where the teams are competing and seeing how low of a pressure they can run. And that's what was happening before. So they instituted a penalty. They've been tracking the tire pressures for a while. And they instituted a penalty for those who don't stay within the operating range. So there's a minimum tire pressure that you're supposed to be at for 60% of the race. They have sophisticated systems that let the rider know if they've been below the minimum tire pressure for too long. Now, why would you be below it at all? Well, the point is that when you start the race, the tire is cold, so you have to be below it, because as the race goes on, heat builds in the tire, and heat means increased pressure. So then after a few laps, you're going to get into the operating range, you're going to go above the minimum, and you're going to stay there. So why is this an issue? Well, the issue is that when you start the race, you have to try and guess whether you're going to be in a pack or you're going to be by yourself. If you're cruising around by yourself, if you get caught between bikes and the bike ahead is far away, or you're leading a pack, there's a lot of air that's hitting the front tire. This is cooling the tire. Cooling means lower pressures. If you're riding in a pack and you're behind other riders, you're not getting that fresh air that's hitting the tire, and your pressures will be higher, your heat will be higher. So what happened to Mark is he found himself leading a pack. He couldn't keep up with Martin and Bagnaia, and so he was leading. And they had probably set their pressures for him to be fighting, because Mark tends to fight with a lot of other riders, and they probably thought that he would be in a pack or he'd be following Martin. That didn't work out, and that's why he gave Di Giannantonio the point by, and which is a weird thing. All the commentators were like, what? Why did he point him by? And Simon Crafer correctly recognized the issue was tire pressures. He needed to follow somebody to get his tire pressures into the right zone. Even though he followed Di Giannantonio for a while, it still didn't work. He wasn't able to stay in the zone, and so he was below it. And that's what it is. You get the penalty. The penalty has to be harsh, or else the teams would play with this too much, and it would become a safety issue. So that's the situation with tire pressures. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you understand it better, and it could be a factor in the championship going forward. It hasn't been too much of late, but it definitely could be again in the future. So let us know what you think about it in the comments. Like and subscribe, and join us again next time on Hot Takes, the motorcycle show for busy people who love motorcycles.